Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. We've made it through this wonderful week. I hope you're all doing well and having a great Friday. Hope you all have great plans for the weekend. Definitely let me know in the chat what you're planning on doing this coming weekend other than designing, which I'm probably going to be doing. And also let me know who's here, who's joining us live on Behance this morning, and let me know where you're from. We have Bethany, we have Sakshi, Dorina, and Gabriel. We've got Tim, awesome moderator, Gusbot, Lee, Amit. We have a lot of awesome people. Farouche, one of our regulars. I love seeing our regulars come in here. And I hope you're all doing well. I'm excited for today's challenge. We're mixing things up a little bit. We're getting a little bit creative. We're actually bouncing off of yesterday's challenge, which I kind of hinted at. Maybe some of you didn't expect it so soon, but I hinted at that we were kind of going to be revisiting that travel agency webpage, and we're doing that today. We're actually going to be creating some sort of a parallax effect using some of the elements and maybe some new elements, and we're going to be starting in XD, and we're going to be utilizing Photoshop because aside from what I talked about yesterday and throughout the whole week about Photoshop users wanting to use XD to bring life to their prototypes and designs, we also see the other way around. We see XD users wanting to use Photoshop to do a little bit more high fidelity design, whether it be cutting out elements or adding things like adjustment layers or filters and things like that. So we're going to be doing that today. We're going to be having a little bit of fun. So let me hop over to my screen, which is right over here. And here's the landing page for the Daily Creative Challenge. You can find it at behance.net/Daily Creative Challenge. And at the top, we have our Photoshop logo. We have our XD logo because we're using these hand in hand this week and next week. We have a register button. If you haven't clicked that register button, definitely do so. That way you can get notifications every single day when a new challenge goes live, like today. We have our little list of steps. Each day you'll receive a challenge. Pretty straightforward. Each day I will be live, well, not on the weekends, but each weekday I will be live here at 8:30 a.m. Today I'm streaming live from Los Angeles. Monday I'll be streaming live from San Francisco. I'm all over the place. And hello to everyone who's just joining us. Welcome. Chat's going crazy. And number 3, you're going to create a prototype using Photoshop and Adobe XD and making sure to use the keyword XD Daily Challenge so we can find your stuff and feature it every single morning. And then you have until December 21st to create all 9 challenges, or just some of them if you don't have much time. It's not a competition. It's really something that we're doing to really push you to better your portfolio and practice your skills at Adobe XD. And down here we have our video, so you can rewatch the welcome series that I did on Monday, and also on Behance. If you're on Behance right now and you click on the replays tab right above me, all the way up there, you can watch previous day's challenges. And then down here, you can download XD completely for free if you wanted to, and you can join us on Slack. And this is one of my favorite things about these challenges. If I hop over to Slack, here we have our introductions Slack channel, 9,721. We're creeping up to 10,000. I'm so excited for that 10,000 mark. We have our help general section. If you have any, help, if you want to get some questions answered, or if you want to jump in there and help others, you can definitely do that. If you want to get feedback on your designs, if you just want to chat, or if you want to see the announcements. And, our great moderators, including Lee, posts our announcements every single day on what the new challenge is. And you can download the templates right here. So let me hop over here. The importance of using the keyword XD Daily Challenge is so that we can find it. We can sort on Behance by most recent. And let me tell you, I think I was up at 6:30 this morning looking at all the amazing challenges that came in over the last 24 hours, and there were some great ones. And let me show you a few of them right now. So this one is from Heather. She did a really nice layout, a little bit different than what I showed during the challenge, which is great because I really encourage all of you to kind of go outside the box and do something a little bit different. And she did this cute little animation with this paper airplane. You notice as she clicks on the different cards, the other ones kind of move to the side and get smaller, which is, I think, a really nice touch. So it can definitely be used for like a photo gallery type of thing. There's a little blog page with some scrolling. Go back to the home page. Really nice elements that she added. A little contact form. Really cool stuff. Next one we have is Usama, who I believe was in Slack this morning posting, looking for feedback, which is cool. Really nice presentation. This great hero image at the top, my city, kind of kicking off what this is all about. Daily creative challenge. And then down here, he has a mock-up inside of an iMac, which is really nice to kind of show what it would look like on an actual device. And a few more images right here. I just love the way this whole layout was displayed and presented. Next we have Saber, or Sabir. He is also, I believe he's in the chat. I think I saw him. Again, a really nice presentation at the top, kind of showing the different screens of this challenge. And then we have a video. Look at those cool effects. And with Auto Animate in XD, it's so simple to create this stuff. Going back, going forward. You can also use a drag effect to create a very similar idea in XD. Really nice stuff. Great work. And then down here, there's a few individual screens. I just love the way this looks. It just looks great. And over here we have Chris Cannon, who is in the chat. He's also one of our mentors this week, and he also might be streaming live with me next week from San Francisco. We have UI and UX week next week. There'll be some good stuff. And he just went completely bonkers with this thing. Who doesn't want to get lost in space? I want to get lost in space. This is really cool. This looks like it could be part of like an actual NASA or SpaceX page to look at the expeditions and things like that. And then finally, this one really kind of blew me away. This one, Igor tweeted this to me yesterday. And where's the video? It just looks great. What he did was he actually repeated the image in the background. He added a little bit of a blur so that when each card kind of pops up, the background changes as well, which I thought was a really nice touch. And you click on a card, it gets full screen. It's got this little widget at the bottom, which you can use fixed elements for if you do have scrolling, so it stays in place. Really nice touches. And that's really what I love about these challenges, is that it really pushes you not to just recreate what I'm doing every single morning, but do something different. Push yourselves to go outside the box and really expand on the challenge. You know, like Igor has done. He took the background, took the image, put it in the background, added a bit of a blur using the object blur in XD, and did something different. I think it was really cool. So today we're definitely going to be doing something different. Let me hop over to Adobe XD. And this is the template that we worked on yesterday. And looking at this now, and then looking at some of the designs that you have all created, this looks terrible. But that's the point of this. I really want you to take this and do something fun with it, right? So what we want to do, we want to actually add a little bit of a parallax effect. And basically, to sum this up, what I'm going to be doing is if someone clicks on, let's say, the middle card, it's going to expand the entire screen, but there's going to be elements that move a little bit slower and a little bit faster than others. And if you're not familiar with the parallax effect, I'm sure you've seen it on websites, but imagine like if you're in a car and you're driving on the highway, right beside you there's a bunch of poles. They're moving very fast. And then there's some mountains in the background. They're moving kind of slow. And then there's clouds even further. They're moving a little bit slower because there's that interesting parallax effect going on. So we're going to do something similar to that. And if you saw my stream on Monday where I kicked this off, you might notice a few, I kind of hinted on this, you might have noticed, a few interesting elements. So I'm actually going to duplicate this artboard. Down here, we're going to work with a nice clean space. And I'm actually going to grab this first card. I'm just going to make it the same size as all the other ones. This, I believe, was 305. Yes, it was. Snap this into place. Great. And I'm make sure that all this is positioned in the center of my document. So what we're going to, for the sake of this, I'm going to remove the location name for the moment. So we want to make this a parallax effect. Now, directly in Adobe XD, it's not very simple because we have no way of cutting out the hills from the background. And we probably never will because that's an advanced photo editing technique, and putting something like that in Adobe XD will probably kill the performance, right? So we need to use Photoshop. So let's go over to Photoshop. And if you don't have Photoshop, if you only have XD and you're not part of the Creative Cloud, don't worry too much about this. I would encourage you to go back on, yesterday's challenge and Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and just kind of explore what else you can do. So here we are in Photoshop with this image of the hills, where I just dragged into Photoshop. And what I want to do first is cut out these hills from the background. So what I can do, I can grab my quick selection tool, which is right here over to the left. And I could go ahead and just like start brushing over top of these hills, but I'm actually going to start with my select subject feature, which is fairly new. And what Photoshop is doing is it is kind of looking at what's in focus, what's the main subject of an image, and it's doing its best to make that selection. And Gladstone is asking, is it necessary to use yesterday's work? Yeah, and as Lee mentioned, you can definitely come up with a new one as long as it kind of falls into, a parallax style effect. So it's done a pretty good job at selecting these mountains. It missed a little bit over here, so I can just brush over top, and I now have a pretty decent selection. Doesn't have to be perfect. I can hold down my Alt-Option key to deselect some of this area. Let me drag around using my space bar to make sure that I have most of it selected. Because it's going to be sitting on the exact same background, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I can also go into select and mask if I wanted to really refine this, but again, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to increase the radius just a little bit so it grabs a little bit more of the trees. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to press, actually before I press OK, I'm going to save it as a new layer with a layer mask. Press OK, and now I have my hills cut out in the background. Very simple. What I might want to do now is actually add an adjustment layer, let's say hue and saturation, just to bump up the greens a touch. And this is kind of where Photoshop really comes into play, aside from extraction and things like that, adding adjustment layers, which you can't do in Adobe XD. So you can do that here. And if I go to my libraries, what I can do is, let's say, go to this library here. I already have some of this stuff saved, but what's neat is I can grab these two layers right here, the hue and saturation adjustment layer, and I can also grab the cutout of the hills. And I can drag these directly into my library, which I already have, this image right here. If I double click on it, you're going to notice it's a cutout of the hills, and it's also the hue and saturation. So they kind of go in together, and they become like an embedded file, really. And at any point, I can easily double click on that and make changes. So if I didn't want the hue and saturation adjustment layer, I can easily do that and save it, right? But what's even cooler than that is now that I've made this extraction and saved it to my Creative Cloud libraries, back in Adobe XD, I can go up to the File menu, go down to Open Creative Cloud Libraries, and all of those assets that I added to that library are right here. And I can easily drag this into XD and position it exactly where I want it. So let's say I'll make it a little bit larger, just about there. Poke it out from the back so the hills are kind of touching the top there. I'll probably want the background image. Let me find, that's my downloads. Let me find my background image. There we go. I'll put this into place, making sure it fills the entire screen. Just like that. And you'll notice those smart guides are kind of snapping into place to let me know that they are in the center of the document. I'm going to move this behind the hills layer, like that. I'll grab the clouds. This is the bottoms cloud. Put that there, and the top. Put that one there. Now I want to make sure to group all this stuff together. So in my layers panel, I'm going to select the top clouds, the bottom clouds, hills, and the background, and group them Command or Control G, and I'll just call this hills. Now at this point, obviously this doesn't look great. It's kind of taking up the entire document. So I'm going to hide this, and I'm going to drag out a rectangle that's the exact same size as this shape here that we want to mask it into. And I believe the corner radius was 10 pixels. That looks good. And with that shape, let me name this Hills Mask. With that shape above our Hills group, I'm going to select both of them with my Shift key, go up to the Object menu, and then Mask with Shape. So it's basically taking all of those elements that were in that group, the hills, the background, and the clouds, and it's putting them all within that little mask that we just created. Then if we wanted to, we can grab the image in the background. We can grab this and can just delete it. We don't need that anymore. There we go. So we now have that mask. We can also open it up, make changes to it if we wanted to. Might want to move the hills down just a touch. Maybe move the background down a little bit. There we go. When we click off, it hides all the mask, and we now have our new layout. Now, how do we actually make this work? Well, very similar to yesterday, all we have to do is design the second state. So I'm going to grab the first artboard, Command or Control D to duplicate it over to the right, and all we have to do is adjust the mask. So I'm going to move this guy over to the left. Let me decrease the opacity. Move this one to the right, decrease the opacity. And on this mask with all of our lovely elements, I'm going to select the mask and just simply drag it up. Make it large, make it small, whatever you want to do. And now we have all of the elements visible on the screen. Now, we obviously, because of the parallax effect, we want certain elements to move a little bit faster and slower than others. So we're going to grab the hills layer. We're going to shrink this down. Shrink it down this way. Make sure it snaps to the side. The background layer is going to shrink just a tiny little bit because it will move a little bit slower than the hills. And then the clouds layer, we're actually going to grab these and just move them. Similar to what we did on Monday, we're going to move them all the way up and all the way down. There we go. And now we probably want some text to kind of appear from the mountains. So what we're going to do there is make sure the hills are nicely in place. They are. I'm going to grab my text tool, shortcut key T, and let's type out daily challenge. And I might want to crank up the size of daily, just like that. That looks good. I may want to increase the spacing, the line spacing. And I might, let's say, let me change the text to DIN Condense. That's a good font. And then make this a little bit larger. Now we're going to run into a problem, right? Let me actually move the hills down, and the background I'll move down a little bit as well. Now we're going to run into a problem because this text layer is not on the first artboard as well. It's just here. So in that case, it'll default to a transition. So what we have to do, we have to copy it from this artboard, go back to this one, go inside of our mask and paste it. Then I can move it around. I'm going to make it smaller, move it down the artboard so it's behind the hills. And then what you'll notice is if you're in a mask and you try and drag a layer, it's not going to let you. So you have to use the shortcuts. You can use like move back, which is Command and then the right square bracket, and that'll move it right behind the hills within that mask. So all of our elements are in place. What we've done is we've created this mask using a very simple rectangle and all of the elements that make up the design. And then on this artboard, we've expanded that mask and then we've moved some objects around. We moved the hills a lot quicker and a lot more drastically than the background. The clouds flew out all the way, and then the text kind of came up from behind the hills and got a little bit larger. So let's see this in action. We're going to go into our prototype mode at the top, select the middle card. So essentially, if someone clicks on the middle card, it's going to do something. So we're going to drag this handle, this one right over here, drag it over to the right, and then in our little dialog box, we're going to choose tap because that's the trigger that we want. Auto animate, which will tell XD to look at the differences between the two artboards. We'll do an ease in and out, so it's a little bit slower at the beginning and a little bit slower at the end. And for the duration, we'll start with 4 seconds, we'll see what happens. So with that all set, we're gonna press play. And here is our layout, and all we have to do is press on the middle card, and the parallax effect will take place. Now, I am noticing that the hills didn't move very quickly. So what I can do is go into the first card here, and let's say I'll make the hills bigger. There we go. And let's play this one more time. And the hills are moving quite a bit faster. Not super fast, but there's definitely that parallax effect. And if I want the whole thing to move a little bit faster, I can simply click on the handle. Let's jump that down to 2 seconds. play it. There we go. That's a little bit better. That's pretty cool. And one of the benefits of using the Creative Cloud libraries is, let me go back into the Creative Cloud libraries. Let's say I didn't want that adjustment layer, or I wanted to boost it up a little bit, or I want to change it completely. I can right click on this file in my Creative Cloud libraries from within Adobe XD, press edit. It's going to launch Photoshop, that exact same document. And I can, let's say, go back to adjustments. There we go. Come on, you can do it, Photoshop. And let's say crank up the saturation. This looks ridiculous, but it's just to show you how this works. I'm going to crank up the saturation, save it, and then go back to Adobe XD. It's not going to update immediately because it's a large file, but you'll notice that it's updating. So if you do have documents or images that you want to edit, you can save them to your Creative Cloud libraries, and you can always bounce back and forth between the two applications. And then once it syncs, again, that looks absolutely ridiculous. So I'm going to go back, but you can definitely see that it made that change. So let me drop this down, save that again, go back to XD, and it's going to make that change at some point. We'll give it a second. So that's kind of what we're looking for this parallax effect. We really want you to kind of take yesterday's example, yesterday's challenge, and do something interesting with it. Use some images you find either on Adobe Stock or Unsplash or wherever it might be. Cut them out using Photoshop and create some sort of fancy parallax effect. And let me show you this one more time. It's kind of neat. Has a cool effect. And then what you can do from there, you can also add some scrolling. So if I go back into design mode, let me bring this down, make sure scrolling is turned on. Let me make this a bit smaller so I can move this guy up. And I can grab, let's say, a rectangle tool, drag this across. I'm going to fill it. Let me actually move this up a little bit. Let me fill it with a dark green. Or blue, whatever. Make it a linear gradient. Let's say that color there, so it kind of blends in. Turn the opacity down here. Move this up just a little bit. Move this down to the bottom of the artboard. And then if I change the background of the artboard to this color, what we can do now is have this cool scrolling effect so that kind of blends in with the rest of the document. So I can just scroll down, and then you can have stuff down here. It all kind of blends in nicely with this image. So that's it. We need to be able to create CC libraries from Adobe XD. Yes, I definitely agree. And actually, at 12 o'clock today, I believe, Talon and I believe one of the engineers or someone else from the Adobe XD team is going to be right here live on Behance. And that would be a great time to ask the product team some questions about things like Creative Cloud and things like that. But I would love to see more flexibility with Creative Cloud directly in Adobe XD. But in the meantime, it's nice that we have access to it and we can use that to kind of bounce back and forth between applications. And Arbor is asking about masking in Adobe XD. There definitely could be some improvements that I would love to see. Go to adobeXD.uservoice.com, and I'm sure there are some threads on masking. If they're not, definitely add them in there because the product team is looking at those things all day, every day, and they use that stuff to really influence the changes that are coming in future updates. So that will wrap it up for today. That was fun. Let me hop back over to me. Actually, let me go over here. Make sure to join us in Slack. We'll definitely be there, today and maybe not on the weekend, but definitely all next week we'll be there talking, chatting, looking at designs and stuff like that. That's been really fun. So I'm really excited to see what all of you put together. Go outside the box, create something cool, whether it's bouncing off yesterday's design or something completely new. But definitely upload it to Behance, use the hashtag XDDailyChallenge, and I will see you all bright and early on Monday. And we're also going to be having a great UI and UX week all of next week. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next week. See ya.